After being on the road with well-established artists, what advice do you have for up-and-coming artists?
For up and coming artists, I would say very first, as you begin to find opportunities, be appreciative and grateful for them.
Right.
Like we work in an ecosystem where a lot of people take their jobs and their livelihood seriously.
Hmm.
Even if we're at just talking the local bar level, all the way up to like your small regional venue, like your Soul Kitchen, all the way to the biggest arenas possible. Um, and that is, there are a lot of fish in the sea,
Hmm.
and know your worth, but also recognize the worth of those around you. Like as a professional, let's just call me a roadie. My time is valuable. Your time is valuable. Respect that time. Sound check is not optional. If you're in a band, you show up on time or an hour before. If you're the drummer, an hour and a half before. Come on, guys. But you do everything you can to be a professional, but not take things too seriously either.
Right.
If you can't get that that SM Beta 58 microphone that you want, like just be like, okay, I'm fine with this Audio Technica. Like you can't make demands unless you have the money or reputation to back it up. And as you're building your reputation, humility with respect is kind of the best way to go about things.
Absolutely. And the second question um, slips my mind again. What was that second question?
So we were talking about how, casting a net and finding other musicians to work with, collaborate with, finding new gigs, opening new doors. And the answer is you just have to knock. I mean,
Right.
you go around and you find out. And unfortunately, the worst that happens is not that they say no. The worst that could happen is that you never find out.
Mm.
And even if you do find out and it is a no, or it's not your scene, not your crowd, maybe you're not the right fit or whatever, like you take that discouragement, but you keep moving. You find new watering holes. Like there's a lot of opportunity here on the Gulf Coast, if not Mobile. If you feel like you've tapped out your market and shook all the hands that you can downtown on Dolphin Street or across the bay
Right.
in Orange Beach, go to Biloxi, go to Pensacola, head over to New Orleans and just step outside of your comfort zone and have a conversation. You know, like it could be as simple as lighting somebody's cigarette and having that be like, "Oh, do you know any musicians around here? I'm a musician. Really? What do you play?"
I'm gonna go buy a lighter after this.
I have a friend who was a professor at the University of South Alabama. His name's Dennis Guyon, and he quit smoking a long time ago. I quit a year ago.
Nice.
Um, and he always carries a cigarette lighter around just in case somebody asks,
Right.
because it's a polite way to start conversation. I'm
Right.
not saying that you need to carry around a lighter or, God forbid, start smoking cigarettes or stop smoking cigarettes. If you
Right.
are a smoker, I would recommend doing that.
Right.
Um,
I started smoking because of Carter Phillips.
but just find a way to like find out where the smoke's coming from.
Right. Ah, wow. That's a metaphor on the spot. That was awesome. Welcome, guys, to the Gulf Coast Music Podcast.
Good evening.
Today's new wave is Carter Phillips.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on. You just briefed to me that you want to focus on the music business side or the business side of music.
Absolutely. I think specifically production. I think that there are a multitude in a world of careers for musically inclined people. Maybe
Right.
you're a musician who plays an instrument and doesn't really vibe with the recording or the performance side, but want to contribute overall to either musicians that you know locally or larger productions or events nationally. Um, I've started out in college as a cameraman for the University of South Alabama's basketball, football, you name it, whatever kind of athletics program that they had, and turned that into a six-figure career
Really?
touring the country as a video technician.
Wow.
So,
What's your day to day like as a video technician?
well, let's start on the bus, guys. Let's start with the dream job. There's a to there's an A to C here, but let's start at C just to give you the picture of waking up on a tour bus in a 3 foot by 7 foot confined little coffin in a giant Prevost Greyhound sized bus. 7:30 in the morning, you're waking up, you're walking to breakfast, you're in Orlando, Florida at the Hard Rock Cafe. You don't know whether the bathroom's on the right or the left, so you follow laminated signs around until you find your crew chief for the morning, and we find out who we're working with, who's going to help us set up these screens, run these cables, uh, get the lights, the cameras, and the action rolling for the rest of the show to come for the day.
Yeah.
You know, we wake up, unload a truck, set it up on stage, tell our people this is what we need from you, locals that are capable stagehands, and we put them to work around lunchtime. We eat, we chill, we do some programming if necessary, and hang out on the bus about, from 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Some days you don't really get to rest, but come showtime about 7, 8 o'clock, we put our headphones on, we get on our comms, talk a little smack, a little bit of shop before the show, and then we lock in. Whether you're running a camera, whether you're shading, directing, switching, operating a light board, or a spotlight, just so many different jobs in different departments, from video, audio, lighting, pyrotechnics, rigging, special effects, you name it. Like, everybody has a very specialized position. You run that show for a few hours, go through the opener, go through your headliner, you pack it up fast. You get those same guys you had in the morning helping you out. They come up to you, and it's like, okay, quick, we need to grab these cameras off the stands. We need to unplug these. I need you to roll it up. I need you over here. It's chaos for like the first 30, 45 minutes, and then it all gets packed up. You go back to the bus, you open a beer, light up a smoke, or you just go to sleep if you can afford to do so.
Jeez.
And you wake up in Virginia Beach the next day from Orlando, or whatever it is. You will travel hundreds of miles while you're asleep.
Right.
So life on the road, it can be pretty intense, and everybody romanticizes, like, as an artist, like, oh, I want to play a stadium. Oh, I want to do Red Rocks, or Bridgestone Arena, Radio City Music Hall, whatever it is.
Sure.
And very few people actually make it to that level of performance, but even to be on a team, to operate at that level every day for a month straight, 3 months straight, 6 months, however long, it's an honor and a privilege. And it takes a certain kind of person who doesn't need a whole lot of sleep and is willing to move on to the next thing and just kind of lock in and communicate and work with your team.
What a privilege it is to have you on here.
Yeah.
Because I've only had artists on here, as I can think of, and to have and promoters, but to have somebody who's really integrated in the music industry in a different way. I just want to hear so much. I want to hear some cool stories. How'd you get into that exactly? And anything else off the top of your head. Control said that you'd been touring with Post Malone and Jelly Roll.
Oh, hold on. Let's not cap a minute. I have worked some shows. I have worked shows for Post Malone, but I have not been on his tour. I would so like to go on that Post Malone
Control.
Jelly Roll stadium tour. I have been out with Jelly Roll for a few weeks.
That's cool.
You know, I got called in. So the summer of 2023 was a landmark year for me. I worked for one company, LMG, and they hooked me up. My first tour was as the engineer in charge, video engineer for Maggie Rogers.
Oh wow.
You know, she got handpicked by Pharrell
Right.
at NYU.
Big video on YouTube.
Yeah, like for Alaska, I think it was.
Man,
and
love
then
that song.
she turned that into just a multinational, like headlining arena amphitheater tour, and I followed her on the Shed Run, and it was a blast. Shane Rodden was our production manager. Fantastic organization, but it was tough still. It pushed me to my mental and emotional limits, you know, every day. Like, we're running off of 6 hours of sleep. We're away from home for so long. And
it's only so much Buc-ee's you can eat.
You know, if you even get to go to Buc-ee's, a lot of those times, you know, a lot of times
Popeyes.
it's 2 or 3 days on,
Right.
and 1 or 2 days off. So like we'll do 2 shows, and then we'll get on the bus, and either we'll do what was called a double drive.
Right.
So like you're used to traveling at night while you're asleep. You go to sleep in a moving bus. If you can fall asleep in a moving vehicle, you've got a chance. You know, but you get used to that.
Do people typically lie down to fall asleep? Is there enough room, or do you have to just sit up like a?
Oh, you have to lay down, so you've got about maybe 2.5 feet of headroom, and your feet have to face the front of the bus, because if
like a suitcase.
Yeah, if you're, you know, if for some reason you slam on brakes,
oh shit,
you know, you want your feet to be able to kind of catch you. There have been accidents. Sometimes it's rare cases. Tour buses have rolled over. I think there were some popular country acts. I think it was like Lady Antebellum a few years ago. Don't misquote me on that. Where
I think it was
a tour bus.
Sleaze.
Who?
Sleaze.
Sleaze?
I'm joking. Sorry.
Well, yeah, somebody's tour bus rolled over in the middle of the night. They had to use the emergency exits. Some people were injured. I don't know if anybody died. People have died before in Prevost accidents, and it's not pretty. So, like, safety is a massive concern on the road. But just kind of getting back into the pedigree, like if we want to just read the resume and do all the name drops.
Story time.
After Maggie Rogers, we were out on. I went on Rob Zombie with a company called Screenworks, and man, these are the bad motherfuckers. These are the rock and rollers. You know what I mean?
Fuck no.
Like.
Oh no.
On day 1, we're doing rehearsals in Texas, and it's easily 105 degrees. Like it's Dallas in August.
What is wrong with you, man? Why are you going into hell with these rock and roll artists, man? You're a different breed.
Well, it's, I mean, a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. You know,
That is, yeah.
The price of the privilege of getting to work in these environments. It takes a certain kind of person, you know. You've got to both work hard and be a good hang. And Rob Zombie was one of those ones where it was like, that was the lesson. I had a young crew chief. You know, his dad was big deal back with Kiss and Motley Crue. So, you know, you work with folks that are at your age or younger than you. Sometimes they have more experience. And you've got to bite your tongue and, you know, stiffen up and just lead by example when you can, and accept, hey, you know what? Artists at all ages, whether they're in the younger brackets or the old timers who've been doing it for 40 years, it can be fairly mercurial. It can be fairly chaotic and unpredictable. Our job is to make certain parts of their lives more predictable. Knowing that this show that them and their people, their designers, their creatives, I call them the Hollywood types, like to put together this design. Our job is to execute the show on time every day, no matter what. They don't want to hear about technical issues. They don't
Right.
want to hear about problems. But if and when they do have problems, we either let them know or the people who's in charge of letting them know what's going on.
Right.
You know,
How long did it take for you to get enough experience to where you kind of feel like um, there's at least a 90% certainty that the event will run smoothly?
so we typically do go through a few like processes prior to actually setting out on the road for that first show. On my end, in the video department, typically we roll with gear vendors and we'll go to a warehouse either in Nashville, Las Vegas, LA, Orlando, and we will pick through all of the gear and say, hey, I need a 4 camera system that can accommodate this many type of records. We're going to build these racks here for 2 days. We're going to test it all out. And then we're going to go to rehearsals. So there are a few facilities, like one of the most famous ones right now is Rock Lidditz. That's a it's in Pennsylvania, Lidditz, Pennsylvania, in the heart of Amish country. They built these giant
They must
black boxes.
They must have been confused as hell.
Well, the idea is that artists have to deal with a lot of attention.
Right.
We're talking about, stadium level artists that have 10, 15, 20,000 people showing up just to see him perform.
Right.
There are all sorts of people like label executives, fans, just friends of the artist and the band, the A party, the B party, the folks that are always, wanting to be a part of things when the show's going on. When they need to rehearse, they're here to work and they want to be incognito.
Right.
So there are a few different places that are becoming pretty popular rehearsal like hubs, and that's like Lidditz in Pennsylvania.
Amish country.
I spend a lot of time, like I live in Ashland City, Tennessee, which is like 20 minutes outside Nashville. And 20 minutes north of me is Clarksville. And they basically take the empty arena at Austin P University,
Right.
it's F&M Bank Arena.
Ain't nothing happening there. Yeah.
Nothing happens in there during the summer.
Right.
The Nashville Predators will practice there every now and again, their hockey team.
Gotcha.
But most of the time, they'll basically take that arena and rent it out for a few weeks. That's where we did Jelly Roll rehearsals last summer.
Gotcha.
We did Kelsey Ballerini a few weeks ago. I think she's rolling now. But yeah, like they want a low-key, quiet place where they can rehearse, record, perform, get things dialed in with their lights, their show, and everything. And part of our job, too, is to kind of maintain that veil.
Right.
Like, we don't break the fourth wall. We don't really get too involved with everything. We're still friendly with our team and our people and our artists, but, we're not coming straight up to Rob Zombie like, hey, look at this thing, or Jelly Roll. It's like, that man has enough people coming up to him every day.
Right.
Our job is to just kind of be another brick in the wall, but it's one hell of a wall.
And what do you call the video wall?
Video wall, LED screen. I mean, when I'm on an LED, technician's tour, I like to think of myself as a big TV repairman. So yeah, just LED screens. I mean, we call the ones left and right that do camera feed, like
Right.
we call that the iMag.
Okay.
But depending on the location, like we might say upstage wall. Like if you're familiar with theater arrangement and direction, like it's a pretty universal language that carries over into the touring world. You've got your stage left and your stage right, which is the opposite of your house left and your house right. Right? Upstage, downstage, offstage, backstage, whatever, and then rigging, which is all of the stuff above. And that's kind of how we start our day. Is we're always getting things ready for the riggers, marking our floor,
Right.
making sure that all of our measurements are exact. There are times where when I'm not on tour specifically, I'll go up and be one of those upriggers in the venues that I started working at.
Is that scary?
It can be, but I got over it a while ago.
Nice.
I mean, we have to have safety equipment and we have to have best practices, and you have to trust the people that you go up with.
Right.
There are some houses that I don't like rigging in because I haven't gotten along with some of the folks. I mean, mea culpa, but there are some
What
places.
is mea culpa?
It's kind of like my fault, you know.
Gotcha.
It's like accountability is
Right.
so important in that because we're in a very safety sensitive position.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just kind of throwing it back to like the variety of opportunities you asked earlier. How did I get to this level where I'm touring and making thousands of dollars a week? It started in college media. It
Right.
really did. Like I was working at the television, like the sports TV station
Right.
for the University of South Alabama. Started my first show. Somebody put a camera in my hands and said, follow the ball or find the hero after the shot. And I used that skill to learn how to man a broadcast sized camera. And the next summer I was working as a stagehand and they needed a camera operator. And I said I could do it for Eric Church's show at the local level at the wharf
Right.
down in Orange Beach.
Right.
So I was ready, but I was wearing a bright yellow shirt. I was not prepared for the job. I may have had the skills,
Right.
but they needed me in a certain environment and
Incognito.
atmosphere. Exactly.
Right.
So they gave it to one of the other spotlight ladies, and I was kind of upset.
Ah.
But when she didn't have the skill to operate this piece of equipment
Yeah.
that I learned how to man in school,
Yeah.
I got my opportunity.
Nice.
So they gave me a black shirt.
Hey.
They gave me a
It's like
black shirt
it's like
and
the
yeah,
music industry black belt.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they gave me a black shirt and I got on camera for it was a band called the Brothers Osborne. That was
I think I've heard of them.
Yeah, they're starting to get a little bit of clout. I think they've been around, they tour, and
Yeah.
they've been support for a while. They deserve, some headlines.
I've definitely heard that name.
Yeah. And then we shot Eric Church. And what was crazy about that show is it was all black and white.
Ah.
But during Osborne, they were like, holy shit, he's actually kind of good.
Nice.
We got to, we got to keep going.
What's kind of the secret behind being good at broadcasting? Or one of them.
When it comes to broadcasting, I don't speak to what happens after the live event. I think of myself as a live events person and less of a broadcast. But when it comes to video, learning how to listen with your eyes, read body language and cues, have a sense of someone's momentum, right?
Right.
Thinking as a camera operator purely. Somebody's walking this way, if their head's turning this way, you're going to want to kind of move with the action, follow the ball, so to speak, which is why I think sports was such a good introduction to it.
Nice.
But really having a solid team,
right.
There, you can be really good at your job,
right.
But if people don't want to work with you,
right,
you're not going to get hired.
Right, and you won't make much progress in general, Like if you're trying to start your own business, there's no way to just do it all by yourself,
Well, you can stretch yourself thin,
right?
But you can learn how to say, I can do anything as an affirmation, but I can't do everything. Or if I try to do everything,
right,
I can't do everything well.
Right. Gotcha. Give me some stories.
Some stories. Well, What kind of stories or what era are we talking about here? Are we
Well,
talking from
let's kind
the
of
road era or on the way to getting on tour?
let's say best you're on the bus and you guys are playing a game and then something happens. Has that ever occurred?
Yeah, uh, I I think there's kind of the F or out to find out game that'll happen. So there's I was on tour with Chase Atlantic last fall,
Right.
and we were on our way from New Orleans to Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like as much of a Gulf Coast story as we can get. We're
It's
rolling
like
down I-10 in the middle of the night.
what's that, like a 10-hour drive at least?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's we weren't driving. It was the bus driver.
Shout out.
Shout out bus driver.
Shout out Jerry.
And like we're just fresh off of the New Orleans call. Like our merch guy, he's coming in late because he was just plastered.
Right.
And he almost got fired, like on the spot. We were gonna do what's called an oil spot, right?
Right.
Where you have bus calls. By the way, in touring or really any kind of event or broadcasting, time is like God.
Yeah.
You don't mess with those assigned times.
Right.
They come from the top down, and either you're with the time or you're getting left behind.
Yeah.
So we just barely get him on the bus, and we're just kind of rolling and having some fun. And we're kind of getting ready to head to bed about like 1:32 in the morning. We'd already passed through Mobile. I remember getting a nice little video of going through the Wallace Tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to a little bit of Red Clay Strays and just missing home because it's like, we're skipping past Mobile. We're not even stopping here. And somewhere after Pensacola, we get off at an exit for gas or something, and we get back on the road.
That sounds like a Jimmy Buffett song, by the way.
The cops had made both of our buses. We're both traveling. We have 3 all-white tour buses that look almost identical.
Right.
The Stars bus, like, you know, where Mitty and Clinton and Kraz and, you know, the A Party, they were long gone. But all the crew buses, we got the bus in front of us pulled over, and our bus driver decides to pull behind him. So we got about 6 cop cars. We're on the side of I-10 at 3 in the morning.
Oh, shit.
I'm in my pajamas, and I had just managed to get some flip-flops. And even though this was like late September, early October, it was cold, and we were all standing out there.
Oh.
And I remembered like to bring my phone with me. So I had my phone in my pocket.
Nice.
So they started searching the first bus. I mean, we're talking like Florida State Troopers, Okaloosa County sheriffs, just walking up and down, opening up all the departments and walking on the bus. We felt like our rights were being infringed because nobody on the bus had really done anything illegal. But they're like, okay, we're going to start opening suitcases. And then right before that happened, a few of them came pulled off. And then we see the cops kind of talking. This is 45 minutes on the side of I-10.
At 3 a.m.?
At 3 a.m.
Oh, my God.
And they come up to us. I've got a video of this. I'll probably send it to you after this. They said, all right, guys, we're going to let you go tonight. We were just concerned. We stopped you because, you know, we saw your flight, your travel plan was from San Antonio to New Orleans to Orlando. We've been seeing floods of, you know, like major loads of drugs and fentanyl and cocaine coming from the border areas. And they like to attach them to buses and trucks in discrete places.
Right.
And it's like, dude, we don't do any of that.
Right.
They couldn't find anything. They took dogs to everything. We were just trying to sleep on our way to work the next day,
Oh,
and
that
it
seems
could
like,
be a bit of profiling. It could be a bit of
right.
the whole, you know,
Eh, eh,
rock and roll lifestyle.
right.
But the cautionary tale, though, too, at the end of that, we all had to go back to bed, and we're all wired. So I stay up a little longer. I edit the video
Right.
of what I saw, and I didn't wake up on time for work the next morning. So I got an earful from my production manager, my crew chief, a phone call from the guys out in LA, and the real cautionary tale for all of this: do not be late to work, because
Come on, Dave.
they will find you, and they will find another you very quickly.
It's a great cautionary tale.
I made it through the whole tour, but
What happened to your buddy that was plastering?
he made it through the tour too. Like, that was one of those times where, hey, maybe, you know, maybe you got to mind your P's and Q's, but maybe that was one of those things that led to, hey, we're not going to put up with anything anymore.
Yeah,
You know,
that
like
was quite the sobriety test.
Yeah, production, had kind of come up to us and been like, hey, we need to, tighten up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that bus driver who pulled over after everybody, he got fired the next day.
Oh,
We didn't have to stop.
gosh, man. So everything gets documented.
Everything gets documented.
CYA.
Everything's in a. Yep, we have an app called Master Tour, or some of the old school tours like Zombie. Like, they've got tour books, and they have every day down to the minute planned out, from the moment you start rehearsals
Right.
to the moment that you get on your plane flight home.
Damn. So, like, number one responsibility of a bus driver is to not stop.
No, you've got to stop. You just got to make sure that your people are taken care of, and that
Right.
like, there are times where you really can't stop. There are times where we're limited by the amount of distance.
Yeah.
Like, let's just say
My mom would have been a great
500
bus driver.
miles. Yeah.
Yeah. All the times I wanted to stop at McDonald's.
Yeah. We'll stop once in a while, but
Right.
And you can stop the bus driver, because there is a number one important rule on tour, and that's just don't poop on the bus.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's it's a mobile RV.
Right.
We're not dumping our septic every day,
Right.
and it's just makes a mess. It's
Yeah.
the fastest way to get fired and go home.
Really?
Yes.
Because you pooped on the bus.
If you poop on the bus, you're fired.
No, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
There's even a whole podcast called "Don't Shit on the Bus,"
Right.
and it's actually a really good music industry, music business podcast. I would recommend for you. Another one that I really like listening to, but the host, Vince Edward, he died a few months ago. R.I.P. Vince. Beyond the Backstage Pass. There's also Tour Management 101. They will constantly repeat this mantra: don't poop on the bus.
Shitters get shit on.
Exactly.
Gosh. Wow. Learn something new every day. That's funny, man.
Now, I will tell you one story. So, we were in Canada, and you can have a well-managed logistical production where you have everything planned down to the minute, or you can have some just jabronis that kind of fly by the seat of their pants, book flights last minute. We were on one such tour for Burna Boy. He's a
Yeah, reggae.
reggae Afro fusion,
Right.
really
that's
big world tour.
Yeah.
His last album, he got J. Cole and 21 Savage on there,
Type
kind of
shit.
kind of like an all-star of the Afro beats, like, universe.
Jeez.
And we were on the West Coast tour, going from Vancouver, Canada, to Edmonton.
Mm.
So we were basically traveling the whole state of Alberta. It's the middle of the night. like they had flown me for two of the other
They had
cities.
Burna Boy in Canada.
Burna Boy in Canada,
Damn.
Vancouver, and
I guess it makes sense actually. Yeah.
I mean, not as much sense as you would think.
Drake's
There,
always
there's
trying some reggae. Yeah.
there's an audience, but there were definitely a lot of empty seats,
Yeah.
and we were strung along super hard. So they had flown us from L.A. to Seattle. Seattle. I got on a flight from Seattle to Vancouver, and then from Vancouver we got on a bus, drove all the way to Edmonton,
Mm.
and that's like a good 800 kilometers. So, um, on the way, probably like 3 or 4 in the morning, I just got a new iPad and I was playing with some music, trying to compose because I still have a little bit of a musical vein in me. Um, the bus driver pulls off to the side of the road
Ah, fair.
and he goes in the bathroom with a couple of Walmart bags.
Oh hell no.
Yep. And he comes out and throws this Walmart bag, ties it up in the trash instead of taking it to the side of the road or burying it in a hole or something. The bus smelled like that for the entirety of the tour.
And nobody wanted to touch it for the entirety of the
nobody
tour.
knew who it was. Yes, I mean we were.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
it just happened discreetly in the night.
just the mysterious case of the midnight shitter, and because it's the bus driver
You
and
at least
nobody
expect
wanted to take our charter, like, you know, we're in the middle of nowhere
Oh, that's
in
terrible.
like Western Canada.
What's wrong with that guy?
Well, apparently he runs one of the largest Facebook groups for bus drivers. I think he may have had some issues with production or was doing some form of silent protest. Whatever it was, it smelled really bad and we all hated him and we didn't want to see him ever again after that.
So how did you guys come to the conclusion that it was he was the culprit?
Because I was awake and I saw him.
Oh
I
gosh.
saw him do it.
Yeah.
But like I kept that information to myself because when everybody's throwing each other under the bus, like
There won't be
I
anybody to
didn't
drive.
say anything until after the canceled show in Denver, and then we had the 2 days in Texas. Same
you're an op.
bus, same bus. It made it all the way from Vancouver to Calgary or to Edmonton, Calgary, all the way down. We had a week off in Denver because we couldn't fill a show
Right.
at Ball Arena. And then we're doing San Antonio and Dallas or Houston. I think it may have even been a 3-city run. Whatever it was, that blue bus is just permanently stained in my memory.
When you see a blue bus, you're like, I'm not getting on.
Look, there's a lot of stuff that you stumped me, dude. You stumped me. No, there's not a lot of buses that I wouldn't get on. There's not a lot of like full-size Prevost buses that I wouldn't get on because there's always gonna have like one element that's somewhat incomplete with a tour. Whether it's catering or communication, logistical issues. Maybe your gear kind of sucks a little bit. Or somebody on your team you just don't get along, or they're weird or whatever. Like, there's always gonna be those kinds of problems, but your reputation is everything. If you say yes to something, you follow through and you follow up and you do your best, even if it means you don't go back out on the European run or the second summer shows. Like, you still see things through to the end. And when people crash out and when people quit, it creates a situation where everybody who's already there has to pick up the slack for them. And then you're having to get somebody else fly in and be the guy that kind of finishes things up. And there have been a few times where I've had to be that guy where somebody gets a little too hopped up and a little too comfortable with the artist, and decides it's a good idea to dance with a $30,000 broadcast camera on their shoulder and lip sync the words and just be the stage right hype man.
With the camera, they're dancing
Yeah,
with the camera.
dancing with the camera, and the artist may like that, but it makes production nervous, it makes the vendor nervous, it makes your stage manager just say, hey, this is a problem, we're going to find somebody else. So
Right.
um,
You dance your way on out of here.
yeah, and that's how I got a call at the key. Yeah, I think it was the Kia Forum in
Right.
LA, or the Kia Center in Anaheim.
Okay, gotcha.
It was whatever that is, some car arena
Yeah.
in like greater LA area for the end of Rob Zombie, where they said, "Hey, we need you to go finish this Jelly Roll tour. We've got a situation."
And then, like Batman, you just came out of nowhere and finished it.
It pretty much, like 72 hours later, like it's like, hey, you're not going home. Like you've been out on the road for about 12 weeks, pretty much consecutively at this point. We're going to put you out for about 5 more.
Oh,
And I was like, you know what? Yeah, this is what I need to do. So I hopped in.
you're a good man.
I flew to Memphis. I had some trouble at the rent-a-car counter.
Oh man, I effing hate renting cars, bro.
Well, like they were, because I had to drive to Tupelo, Mississippi,
Right.
and they were like, "How are you going to return it? Do you have a return flight?" So I managed to get the travel agency to book me a flight on the spot from Memphis to Tupelo, and from Tupelo to Nashville.
Damn.
So like we never actually used that flight. We just used it as a cover for the rental car.
Nice.
So we use that as the cover for the rental car. I get this neon green Jeep Gladiator.
No, that's genius, actually.
And then they canceled the ticket, and I drove 2 hours south, bumping 3-6 Mafia like the whole way, like,
Lit.
and pulled up at 1 a.m. on the bus to like pulled up in front of the buses where Jelly Roll were at. I saw the crew chief. I recognized him. He was my crew chief for Hangout Fest.
Right.
And like they pretty much explained the situation, and there's just some shop that I can't even really tell you about, but what I can say is that they were happy to see me, and I was really happy to be there.
You're the savior.
It can feel like that, but there are also times where when you're batting cleanup, making up for somebody else's mistakes, that there's a weariness. Like
Right.
production is already looking to get rid of either your vendor, like the company you're working for entirely,
Right.
or they're like Genghis Khan. They just chop heads left and right because they can, and find somebody to do it for a little bit cheaper, and fly them in. And your job is like, we're already coming into a delicate situation.
Right.
Let's do our best to turn that frown upside down, make these people happy, and make everybody money, and just finish the contract, no matter how bad things are.
Yeah.
Like,
That's some stuff you don't learn in school. The ability to kind of like you said, with scheduling the flights, that you could take a drive down and just be on the time, and then, like you said, making people happy in the moment. That's some experience stuff, and also just some intuitive stuff. Not all heroes wear yellow. You know what I mean?
No, but a lot of stagehands do. In my book,
Yeah, I messed that up.
they
actually.
really are some of the heroes.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
yellow,
Yeah.
orange construction vests, black shirts, hard hats,
Right.
those little high vis string things.
Right.
Whatever it is, those guys are really the backbone of the entire industry. And
Exactly.
when I got out of school, like, so to kind of get into the journey of how I went from this pretty illustrious career of, flights, passports, per diems, nice hotels, and sleeping on buses. It took a lot of times where I was a stagehand here in Mobile, or over in New Orleans, or over in Pensacola, going to Hangout Fest or Bonnaroo,
Right.
and taking a job for sub $20 an hour. And just chasing money and stacking it up, building scaffolding for stages, running super like fire hose thick looms of cable through 500 feet of mud and doing that over and over and over again because it's what that roadie who came off the bus needs done that day.
Right.
You know, it the job and the landscape changes, but ultimately the work itself or the principles of it don't. And if you make those connections, if you demonstrate that you can work hard, follow instructions, especially at the labor level, like they already have a plan in place. You know, I feel like everybody in this room at least has a decent concept of audio and video. They're not super into the what about this or
Right.
solving that kind of problem. Sometimes you work for a small or mid-sized company like Cameron, like Kinsey does, like where you are that problem solver and the intermediary. But for the most part, it took a lot of putting my head down, getting to work, busting ass for long enough to have the boss say, "Hey, that was pretty good. What's your name?" And then using that as a platform to open a conversation like, "Oh, maybe I do want a career in this. Maybe I want to go.
Absolutely.
Are y'all hiring? Do you have a warehouse or a shop where I can come in and learn the gear or a small production or a show that I can work on every week?"
Right.
Whatever the case, it's really like be the one who's willing to help first before you seek help for yourself later.
You
But
like
don't.
the music industry, Jesus.
I if I was, I probably deserve to be crucified a few times over.
That's a great
Like
answer.
take what I say in some of these off the bus stories with a grain of salt. And there are a lot of fantastic people that have come before me that taught me this, but sometimes you do the job on tour and it's like, well, what am I doing this for? I stacked up, you know, $15,000-$20,000 at the end of a season, and blow it all on AV equipment. Like
Mm.
a couple years ago, after the 23 tours, I kind of did that and invested in some robotic cameras like PTZs, and went all over town telling everybody, "Look at these things! I've got these. I wrote a script that can trigger the AI and this and that." And again, sometimes they don't really want to know or care what you got going on. They need their job done,
Right.
executed for a specific vision.
Absolutely.
And if you're willing to set aside your own creativity and your own
Right.
personal vision for long enough to fulfill someone else's, you can come back with the resources that you need to do your own thing.
Everybody's in their own zones anyway. It's impossible to try to make them focus on yours. You just got to have a way to help them and be useful. So no, that was great. Yeah, that was awesome. We could go on and on, but between the shitter story and there's a lot of guys that are going to hear this, and I know myself included are going to be interested in this side of the music business, and yeah, the behind the scenes stuff is. Well, how do you make a couple $1,000s each week? What's kind of the working hours and pay rate?
Well, I wouldn't mind putting my rate on television.
Bang.
So this is my desired rate. This is my tour rate for an EIC or a V2 as a camera operator, LED guy, rigger. That's one potential job that I typically do, or the engineer in charge, which is basically, making sure the switcher works, all the cameras are working, etc. For those roles, it's paid weekly.
Oh, gotcha.
So, you can have a day rate and you multiply that by 7.
Sure.
In my case,
Are we working on Sundays?
yes, unless we're not working on Sundays.
Right.
In my case, I typically ask for a AAA level tour at $3,500 a week, plus per diem, which is anywhere between
Swimming in it.
$30 and $75, depending on the tour. Typically decides what your per diem and your meal ticket is,
Right.
and the actual rate is dictated by you and your negotiation.
Gotcha.
And thanks to rising production costs, those rates are going up, but that also directly translates to your ticket prices. I mean, the what artists and designers have been asking for lately has been pretty extravagant. And if you saw what goes into building a Taylor Swift style like size stage, it's more or less understandable why it's $400 to $500 for a general admission ticket. Do I think anybody in their right mind should pay that much for a concert ticket? No. I personally prefer the small and mid size, like think Wharf Amphitheater, like that's kind of my niche. But to each their own, and it puts a lot of good people in business.
Would you ever want to work for a Taylor Swift concert? Mark it off your
I
bucket
would
list.
I would actually kill for that position, but
Right.
I would disappear 100%. Like,
What do you mean?
Like, if I were to get Taylor Swift as a client long term,
Shit.
I would 100% disappear from all social media.
Right.
I would go super deep into the NDA zone.
What's the NDA zone?
Like non-disclosure agreements. Basically, like Swifties can be like Trackhawks. You know,
Oh,
they
okay.
they will find you, and like I've heard stories from guys who are on the Swift tour, or even like Olivia Rodrigo, and I'm sure Chapel Roan is going to be one of those that kind of experiences that this year. The fan clubs will find out what hotel not the artist is staying in, but the crew is staying in, and try and get themselves there to like, you know,
Right. Touch your hair and think it's Taylor's.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But again, it would be a lot of fun, and it would be, I'd say, a couple years of that would, you know, pay for a nice mansion in Mulholland, you know,
Yeah.
a fire restoration.
Yeah.
Shout out to the
Electrified.
firefighters
Right.
in LA,
Yeah. Facts.
you know.
Facts.
But yeah, those property values are going down for a minute, then way up.
Right.
So yeah, it'd be nice and fun to do that, but personally, I don't feel like I would have as much fun as I do with some of my other clients. I would literally just be there for the money, but the money would be enough for, like I said earlier, building that stack, doing what needs to be done, setting aside my own vision and my own creativity
Right.
to fulfill someone else's. And then once I have my freedom,
Yeah.
I can do that for myself.
Yeah.
Like that's how I am building like my own little venue at home.
Nice.
So
Excellent. Excellent. Well, yeah, Carter, I'm, as aforementioned, really happy to have you on here. And this type of insight is um, hopefully well received, and definitely will be well received by our audience. And yeah, thank you so much. And
of course, Quincy.
spreading some knowledge and advising some youth.
Absolutely. And just one last word to the youth,
Or to anybody that's.
to the
yeah.
youth, to the old timers, to anybody.
Right.
If you are musical or not, you are still valuable. You are still capable. You are talented. You have a place in this crazy industry if you want it. Everything from food service to electronics to just good old fashioned person to person human resources management and hospitality. There's a lane for just about everybody. Support those artists that you know locally, and find a way to build your own road, you know? So thanks again for having me on the pod. Can't wait to see this, and you know, come check out some music on the Gulf Coast.
Come on. Thank you guys for tuning in to the latest episode. My name's Q Steezy. This was the Gulf Coast Music Podcast, and today's latest wave was Carter Phillips.
Oh yeah.
Nicely done, brother.